What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about Rezolve. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what really moved in, go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Rezolve went up 5.37%, 398 the low, 448 the high, and a fair amount of volume. So 16.1 million shares being traded, 10.5 is the average. So for those of you that are new to the channel, you know I like to analyze where volume does come from. And ultimately, if we pop over here just for a second, you can kind of see the flow. And ultimately, whenever you see this type of scenario play out, so for instance, if a stock closes green, but yet you see the outflow higher than the inflow, that does mean that hedge funds were buying on the dark pool. And so of course, if for those of you that like to follow what big money is doing, they are buying Rezolve. And there's quite a few good catalysts that did come out recently. So just looking at some of the recent news, they did have this. So they participated in the Citi's 2025 Global TMT conference that was done yesterday. I actually just posted that on the channel just so you guys can actually see it. But nonetheless, I listened to it. To me, it kind of alluded to a lot of big things coming, partnerships, but it's kind of interesting though. They gave jabs. And so for those of you that again follow my YouTube channel, this one right here, I cover SoundHound, and it's kind of interesting how Rezolve gave jabs at SoundHound and other AI plays, and how they really portrayed themselves as the better kind of platform. So I think in general that's very ambitious, and that's one thing I've really liked about Rezolve since the beginning, is that their management is very they know what they're doing. And of course, I think a lot of their history kind of speaks for itself. Aside from this conference right here, you did have them put out on the 2nd, the date of their earnings, which is going to be for October the 1st, 2025. If you want me to live stream it, I can definitely do that. But some of the highlights that they did mention, again, kind of dangle a carrot and hype people up. So major partnerships and new customer wins, fueling accelerated revenue growth and geographic expansion, record first half performance. So yeah, this is very good. At the same time, there was a pretty good article. It wasn't originally in English, but it was translated. I kind of went through this. There wasn't really anything, in my opinion, to justify buying Rezolve because of this article, but still it goes to show that the reach is there. A lot of people are very interested in AI, and more specifically, stocks that are trading at a discount. I know some people might disagree with me on this, and I've actually mentioned that in the past, but I do feel that Rezolve is still, given how much it's gone up, still considered cheap. And so ultimately, even over the last 5 days alone, it is up 18.91%. And so even when it was at roughly the $1.30, I believe that's when I actually posted on my Patreon saying that Rezolve is a solid buy. Originally, I did put a target, I think it was of $3.50 or something like that. Since then, I did give an update. So for those of you that are interested in looking at my analysis, pop over to my Patreon in the description below. But a lot of big things are coming on a global scale. So even essentially in the States, you do have rate cuts most likely coming as early as September the 17th, and potentially even the following meeting. That's happening across on a global scale. So potentially with all these cuts, you are going to see the market expand. And of course, AI seems to be getting a lot of good attention. So at the end of the day, this is where, going back over here, a lot of big partnerships and just consolidation is going to come. And this is something I believe when I first started to look at Rezolve, I think they participated in a �𝗓𝗓𝗡𝗖𝗧 or some conference like that. And that's what they mentioned, is the whole landscape, AI landscape, is going to be completely different, polar opposite 3 or 4 years from now. There's going to be so much consolidation. And even SoundHound's recent earnings said the exact same thing. So I think just as long as you are the one kind of overtaking a lot of companies and getting a lot of good utility and benefit from them, 10 cents on the dollar and that type of deal, then you're going to be on top. So I think a lot of people are just very hyped up over Rezolve, and in my opinion, rightfully so. When it comes to shorts, they're not really that big of a deal, which is kind of interesting because the other comparable stocks have like 30 and 40% short interest. In Rezolve's case, only 7.66% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 9.07 million shares. Today, though, despite it going up 5-ish%, you had shorts increase 410,000 shares. In my opinion, nothing really to worry about. Cost to borrow average is 146.25%. That is an annual rate, not a daily rate, so just somewhat be aware of that. Looking here, 1.04 million in calls, 48,000 in puts. 55% of all the options being done today were bearish in nature. This one stands out, so 284,000 in premiums between 230 and 235. So big money's definitely paying attention to Rezolve. And if we kind of orient this as well based on the premiums, for the most part, this one, it looks as though it was primarily bearish, and it looks like 450 calls were being sold. So whatever reason, maybe some hedge funds are kind of locking in some profits, or maybe I'm not really sure. This could be as well a multi-leg transaction. A lot of the other ones seem to be somewhat bullish. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Like I said, though, when it comes down to the dark pool, a lot of these transactions that did occur most likely were actual just hedge funds buying into Rezolve. Same goes for on the secondary market. Although secondary market, if we kind of analyze this data, there was only 5 transactions above $100,000, only 1 buy. So again, reading between the lines, it goes to show that most likely hedge funds were kind of the culprit and really buying into Rezolve. Aside from that, with it closing at 432, it is now trading between this R3 and this R2. So in comparison to a lot of other growth stocks, Rezolve definitely is doing very well. A couple of key points to watch for, though, for those of you that want to swing trade, day trade, or whatever else. 403 and then 379 is going to be support levels. 441 followed by 540 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. So big things definitely might be coming down the pipeline. Potentially their upcoming earnings might be that good catalyst that really propels it higher. Closer to that date, I'll do more of a deeper dive on some expectations and some things along those lines. But because of their earnings, you should get some new ratings as well coming out. There was a couple recently, so it looks like there was a $5 buy by Northland. Analyst has a 45% success rating, so not all that great. But as a consensus, $6.35 is that price target. So that's all the recent ones over the last 3 months, representing a 46.99% upside. Aside from that, though, on the actual chart, you see based on the market position, a lot of upside, a lot of big buys, and it's more oriented towards around that $4 range. So again, you might see some consolidation numerous times around that, but based on the level of buying and the walls, it should in theory bounce off of that and really propel higher. But as far as on the actual chart, it's above all the key moving averages that I generally like to look at, which is the 50, 100, and also the 200. I have this one right here, which is the 10-day moving average, and that usually shows momentum. So yeah, momentum definitely is heating up ever since it looks as though August the 28th, that's when things really blew up. Stochastic RSI is considered kind of overdone, so meaning it's overbought. First sign of weakness, you could see some consolidation as a byproduct of that, but things are looking pretty good. And as long as the market doesn't kind of implode on itself, which some people are assuming it might, I think Rezolve is going to continue to move higher. So let me know your viewpoint on Rezolve. I gave you a very quick summary of everything. I do plan on actually reaching out to Rezolve, their management, to try to do a interview, because I feel like they seem very willing to actually interview. I know some people don't really like to be interviewed by YouTubers and such, but honestly, I own Rezolve. I like Rezolve. I'm going to continue to cover it. I know I don't cover it as much as a lot of people would ideally like, but still, I do really believe it, and I kind of post on it quite a lot actually on my Patreon. So again, for those of you that are wanting to kind of read some additional research and whatever else, pop over there and take a look. Link in the description below and also the comments. But give yourself a shout out if you have been buying, if you've been selling, and what you have been doing with Rezolve. And what's your kind of expectations for their upcoming earnings? What kind of sweet nothings do you want to hear where it'll prompt you to potentially buy more? So with all that said, I appreciate all of you guys watching.